From your Cape Coral News team, researchers say the Cape and much of southwest Florida could be completely swallowed by water. This is incredible. Look at this map. We've got Cape Coral, and this is what some experts say could happen if global warming continues to cause the sea levels to rise. All that black is water taking over South Florida. NBC2's Devin Turk is live along the Caloosahatchee River in the Cape, one of the nation's most vulnerable areas for flooding.
Well, FEMA says that 22 of the 25 of the most vulnerable cities in the U.S. for coastal flooding, they're here in Florida. Most are on the East Coast, but number 16 is here in Cape Coral. And now those new projections show that this river could one day flow right through the city.
Oh my.
Jaw-dropping video.
It's amazing. It's sad.
Showing what the future could hold for South Florida.
It looks like we're in the danger zone. Seriously.
This map, created by scientists, was just made available online. It shows what could happen if global air temperatures increase by 4 degrees Celsius or 7 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's shocking. Do they really think that's going to happen?
Scientist Jim Beaver says yes, but it's a question of when.
When you want access to the water, you cannot really prevent water from having access to you.
He says sea levels have been rising by about 3 millimeters a year. As global temperatures continue to rise, in the next 100 years, parts of Lee County could look like this.
The coastal areas of Lee County will be shallow water areas.
It all depends on how warm the Earth gets. As far as that 4 degrees Celsius change,
many hundreds of years.
He says now is the time to prepare and embrace green energy.
It should be a giant wake-up call. We've got to take care of the Earth or this is going to happen.
Death toll after a dam in the Rift Valley city of Nakuru burst has surpassed 40. The number is expected to rise as search and rescue efforts continue. Weeks of heavy rains have caused flooding and landslides across the country. CGTN's Tulisha Balala has more.
The aftermath of a tragedy. Following weeks of heavy rains, the Patal Dam burst its banks. Its waters swept away homes, power lines and infrastructure, leaving thousands of people displaced.
I saw people running. At first, I thought they were chasing a thug. When I pulled over and stopped my motorbike, I heard loud noises coming from the mountains. I thought there were explosions or gunfire. I didn't realize it was the sound of buildings being destroyed and swept away.
Most of the victims were asleep at the time. Emergency teams from the public and private sector have joined forces, as scores of residents are still missing.
Now, Kenya is not the only country affected by flooding. Across East Africa, storms have left a trail of death and destruction in their wake. In Rwanda, landslides have killed at least 200 people this year alone, while in Tanzania, schools were forced to close for several days. Hundreds of thousands of people across the region are now homeless.
Rains have been falling in East Africa for the last 1 month. Kenya and Rwanda seem to be the hardest hit, with the death toll now clocking 300. An estimated 20,000 animals have also been killed and over 200,000 people displaced. And the number might rise from the latest tragedy in Nakuru, Kenya. Many have been displaced and lost livelihoods as water levels continues to rise. Meteorologists say the rains may continue until the end of May. In Tanzania, things are not different. 9 people have reported to have died in April floods in commercial capital Dar es Salaam. The government has ordered schools to close for several days as a result of flooding. Rwanda too has also been hit. The country's spokesman for the Ministry of Disaster Management, Jean-Claude Twashime, says 18 people have been killed in landslides. Several others are still missing. The western districts of Karongi and Rubavu are the worst hit. As the weathermen predict a continuation of rains in the region, more cases are expected. Infrastructure like roads and schools have also been most affected. But the true extent of the damage will be known after the end of the floods.
More than 70,000 people in South China's Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region have been affected by a heavy downpour. Rains which started Monday have affected more than 72,000 people in 15 countries. More than 3,000 900 hectares of crop were damaged and electricity disrupted several times, causing a direct economic loss of about $14.3 million. Several cities in the region, including Yulin, Wushu, Hsinchu and Hezhou, are expected more heavy downpours. In Yulin, firefighters rescued the stranded residents from heavily flooded areas. Meanwhile, in Lushuan County, rescuers saved an elderly resident who was trapped under debris after a rainfall-triggered landslide caused her house to collapse.
The Marine Mammal Center is studying this 44-foot gray whale on Angel Island's Sand Springs Beach. The whale was first spotted floating in the bay on Friday, and by Saturday, the carcass had washed up along the rocks near the Oakland airport. So on Tuesday, the Marine Mammal Center had the whale carcass towed to Angel Island so they could perform a necropsy. Scientists say the carcass was badly bruised and there were several fractures in the animal's skull. Experts believe the adult female was hit by a ship or large boat.
The whale is on an inaccessible beach.
Alex Leskatoff, the supervising ranger at Angel Island State Park, spoke to us by phone tonight from the island. He's pleased the park can provide space to research the whale, but he says visitors need to stay away.
We have had visitors that have tried to go down to access the beach upon a very, very steep, almost cliff-like terrain, and it's not safe.
The Marine Mammal Center hopes their research will protect animals and their habitats in the future.
Now, the growing concerns about the volcano emergency in Hawaii. Geologists warning more explosive eruptions could be coming, sending boulders and ash flying to an area that's already so devastated. ABC's Kana Whitworth has the latest.
This morning, we're getting a closer look at some of the homes in the path of the Kilauea volcano eruption, where lava has poured into the streets for the past week, scorching houses and yards like this one. Over a dozen fissures have emerged over the last few days, and on Wednesday, an explosive eruption sending a torrent of ash into the sky. Our Marcy Gonzalez was there.
Oh my goodness, that is just remarkable.
In recent years, the volcano has been sending lava into hard-to-reach areas along the coastline. But in the last week, more than 15 vents have burst open, releasing lava, gas, and steam inside residential neighborhoods.
This right here is the biggest lava flow in Leilani Estates. This is the one that continued on for about a half mile. And as you fly over it, you can see it has taken down power poles and changed the entire landscape of this neighborhood. Underneath some 15 feet of lava rock is homes and cars.
There is no sign of how far the lava will spread or when the eruption will stop. Police are now going door to door to evacuate residents near 2 new volcanic vents.
We hope that within, weeks, a month maybe, that we'll be back in here.
And all of that toxic volcanic gas spreading for more than 60 miles. It's posing potentially deadly risk to everyone in the evacuation zone, especially to the elderly and those with breathing problems.
It's really thick. It just makes your eyes water, your throat hurts, everything hurts, and your lungs literally ache. So you gotta just run.
Geologists are very concerned that Kilauea could erupt violently in the coming days. They say that this happens when the lava lake drops low enough to react with the groundwater. It could throw boulders out the size of cars.
Israeli rockets and bombs rained down on Syria overnight. Syrian state TV broadcast images of the assault. Israel's target, Iranian infrastructure and military advisors in Syria, there to prop up President Bashar al-Assad. Israel says the assault was a counterattack after Iran fired some 20 rockets at Israeli military sites in the Golan Heights, causing no injuries. The confrontation between Iran and Israel now threatening to expand. Israel's defense minister warned Iran any aggression will be met with overwhelming force. If we get rain, they will get a flood, he said. And adding fuel to the fire, a political challenge from the United States. Today, the sign came down from the U.S. consulate in Jerusalem. It will officially become the American embassy on Monday. Palestinians who clashed with Israeli security forces today say the symbolic U.S. embassy move kills any hope of Israeli-Palestinian peace. The Trump administration says it reflects reality and is a sign of President Trump's close ties to Israel. But will it also push the increasingly tense Middle East over the edge?
A new Ebola outbreak has hit the Democratic Republic of Congo. There's over a dozen suspected new cases in the African country, and at least 17 people have died from hemorrhagic fever, which is typically linked to the virus. Congo's health minister confirmed one person has already died, while new cases are mounting. The World Health Organization is now sending vaccines to the area. CBSN contributor Alex Clement is here to walk us through the latest. He writes for Signal, a newsletter produced by G0 Media. Good to see you, Alex.
Likewise.
So this has global implications, and this is horrific to know that the DRC is facing this again. There have been something like 9 outbreaks of Ebola since it was first discovered back in 1976. I guess the good news is that they're so used to having these outbreaks that they know exactly what to do and how to contain them.
Yeah, the DRC has long experience with this, and their expertise, by all accounts, is very strong. The one thing that they tend to lack is resources. And I think in that respect, it's interesting to note that earlier this week, the Trump administration, the U.S. is as you know, one of the largest funders of global health initiatives traditionally. The Trump administration earlier this week proposed cutting the remaining funds from the Obama-era funds that were dedicated to fight the Ebola outbreak in 2014. Right, this is part of the budget cutting program that the Trump administration has. So they're actually cutting the funding for fighting precisely this kind of disease. And as we know, and as you say, these things have global implications, right? Diseases cross borders, people cross borders, and a small outbreak of a disease thousands of miles away can actually have very immediate implications even here at home. The second thing is that the director of health security and the National Security Council also resigned earlier this week. So to the extent that the United States can and should play a role in trying to contain outbreaks of this kind, the Trump administration's America First sort of zero-sum view of these things can cut against global health initiatives.
And as I said, if there's a bright spot, it's that the DRC sort of knows how to try and contain these outbreaks because they typically happen in remote villages. Right. And yet this one apparently is very close to a river that has potential to allow it to spread to other villages. And I know that, for example, Nigeria has sort of enhanced their screening of people coming in from other parts of East Africa.
Right. The proximity to the river is one issue. At the same time, reports say that the disease outbreak has not hit major commercial centers. That would be the thing, obviously, that would spread it more widely, but it's certainly something that merits.